Welcome back to the Art and Skill of Coaching, where I teach you how to coach. Do you notice that some of your coaching clients repeat the same patterns over and over again? They'll make a little bit of progress and then they'll eventually self-sabotage and revert back to their baseline. If so, then my next question for you is, you as the coach, do you tend to guide the clients deeper or forward? And that was a little bit of a trick question because the answer is it should be both. Your role as a coach is to move the client simultaneously deep and forward, not one or the other, both at the same time. And what I've noticed is that a lot of coaches are really good at one of these, but not many are good at both. What do I mean by that? Well, some coaches are really good at moving the client forward. They're action oriented, they're solution focused, they're goal driven, they help clients get results and change really fast. And that does work until it doesn't. Because if all you do is move a client forward, that progress most likely won't be sustainable because the root issue originally driving the behavior will get triggered and will resurface over time. It's like putting a band-aid on a broken bone. They might feel better temporarily and some might experience some relief or progress, but the structure underneath is still compromised. Now, on the flip side, I see another group of coaches who are amazing at moving clients deep. They ask beautiful, thoughtful questions. They're curious and they create insight and awareness and realizations. And then nothing. And I call this the Curious George syndrome because these coaches are really good at going deep and sometimes they can even elicit and get to the root of the issue. And then a lot of times, especially if there's a lack of training, they'll have this oh shit moment when they realize, I have no idea what to do with this. This is a little bit more than what I anticipated. And what ends up happening is that the client will leave with this awareness, but no movement, no tangible tools on how to move through it. And when awareness isn't followed by action, what actually increases is overwhelm, is doubt, is resistance, not motivation. And for high achieving clients, I know because I'm one of them, this will drive them crazy. They will get so frustrated that they know what the problem is, but that they can't actually fix it or break through it. And that's why great coaching is a blend of moving a client deep and forward, moving them bi-directionally at the same time. Because what we're really doing as coaches is working with and beneath the behavior. We're incorporating the belief system that is driving the behavior. And when we can incorporate and have the tools to rework it, that's going to create a really strong foundation for when we do give or support the client in creating tangible tools to implement those insights, those realizations, those disruptions, those new habits. And when we're coaching in this way, we are coaching both the brain and the body. We're working with the cognition and the nervous system. And this is where real learning, real sustainable change happens. By the way, this is all backed by psychology and behavioral science, and it all shows the same thing. Behavior doesn't happen in isolation. It's very complex. It's shaped by internal triggers. It's reinforced with consequences. It's maintained by belief structures and people and relationships. But one of the most simple and effective ways to work with behavior and belief systems is something called the ABC model. So ABC, if you're taking notes, you want to write this down, stands for antecedent, behavior, and consequence. What do I mean by that? Well, the antecedent is what happens right before the behavior. What happens right before the reaction? The behavior is what did the client actually do? What was their response to that antecedent? And then the consequence is what happened after and what got reinforced. Was it a secondary gain? Was it a value? Was it a need? Was it relief? Was it a maladaptive coping skill that reinforces a belief system? Like, what was the consequence? Now, this model comes straight out of behavioral psychology. I've been using it for years now. It's used extensively in CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, as well as ABA, which is applied behavioral analysis, because it helps us see patterns without judgment. It helps us very simplistically and tangibly look at what's happening and what is being triggered, what is being reacted to, and what is the consequence, either reinforcing or strengthening that response. So what this means is instead of just asking, why did you do that? Or what would you like to do next? Again, very behaviorally focused, not a problem, but we want to go deeper. So maybe we ask some questions with the ABC model in mind, such as what triggered that response or that reaction? What thought or emotion was present before you decided to act that way? What was the payoff of that reaction? Even if it's a negative one, let's just call it out. Is this pattern feeling familiar? Do you want to keep this loop happening now that we have awareness of what's going on? So let me give you a quick example because I think sometimes it's easier to understand these models when we apply it to real life. So let's say I'm coaching a client who shuts down during arguments with their significant other. So behaviorally speaking, this shutdown looks like withdrawal. Maybe the client goes silent, maybe they disengage, maybe they distract, they pull out their phone. Whatever it looks like for the client, we're gathering that information by getting specificity from them. And when I begin to ask them, okay, what's happening first? Like, what is causing the shutdown? It's in reaction to what? When does this usually happen? What is so overwhelming that you tend to shut down? And if the client can't figure it out, this is when I usually start to bring in models that I teach inside of the Art and Skill of Coaching, like the ABC model. And I'll map it out with the client. And again, having these frameworks is really good when you can't rely on the client's awareness. Some clients are amazing. They're so introspective. They're so self-aware, and they basically do the coaching for you. You're just there as the guide and the accountability and the encouragement and expansion. But sometimes clients don't have the self-awareness. We all have psychological blind spots, and that's the value of having a really good, skillful coach who can objectively and skillfully and with science and proven frameworks point things out to you. So let's say they don't have the awareness. I'll pull this model out. By the way, I know it's the ABC model, but you can work it backwards. So if the client, again, lacks awareness of what is causing that reaction, we can work backwards by talking about the consequence, talking about the behavior, and then uncovering what's bringing it up. But let's say they have medium awareness. We bring this model in and they say, okay, you know what? I think I'm noticing that I start to shut down when my partner criticizes me or when they raise their voice. And so what we're doing here is we're exploring what's happening internally for the client before they shut down. And usually it is a thought like, I'm about to be attacked, or nothing I say will matter, or they won't understand. It's something that gets them into a state of overwhelm or defeat or hopelessness. And then comes the behavior, which they've identified as I shut down. And maybe we take it a step further and think about, well, what does that do for you? And they say, it provides a little bit of relief for me. I feel protected, right? Which is a maladaptive coping skill, but it gives us a lot of interesting information. And so maybe the consequence is that the argument stops because the client shuts down and the partner doesn't know what to do or say, which reinforces that the shutdown is quote unquote working because the argument has stopped, the criticism has stopped, the overwhelm or the defeat or the rejection is alleviated. But what ends up happening long term is that the immediate consequence reinforces the cycle, but the long-term consequence is the reason we're on the coaching call. The relationship suffers. Maybe resentment builds. Maybe this bleeds into other relationships, and the client is noticing that this isn't an adaptive or healthy coping skill. Again, this model helps us elicit deeper, more tangible, valuable information as a coach versus this premature jump to problem solving, where we try to help the client, quote unquote, fix the problem or experience some relief. And we maybe present a communication model or we teach them a coping skill for when they're feeling overwhelmed, all in attempts to help the client from shutting down. But here's the value of what happens when we move the client deep and forward for themselves. What we're doing is we're not just focusing on the behavior, but we're unpacking the belief system under the antecedent of criticism. Okay. Maybe it's a core belief around safety or conflict or worth that is deeper than their partner. And like we talked about before, might even be showing up in other domains of their life or other relationships. And then we rework it. So much more powerful to work on this level. It requires more skill and more training, but it's really beautiful. And there's a lot of proven coaching frameworks and tools to do this type of work, like rework belief systems underneath emotional and behavioral reactions that are beyond the scope of this episode, but we cover them in depth in the Art and Skill of Coaching, which is actually open for enrollment right now. Our spring class doors are open. We are interviewing students and coaches who are interested in training and developing their skill set beyond the basics. And that's what we really focus on doing. We teach you how to become a great coach, and we teach you how to fill your coaching toolbox with scientifically proven frameworks that are based in psychology and are effective and proven to work. But let's get back to the ABC model, because once that belief shifts, then we can introduce a new behavior that's more likely to stick because they're in alignment with one another. If we introduce a new behavior but don't shift the belief, eventually the belief will win, okay? Because the belief is the root system. And if the root system isn't working, we're not going to bear any fruit. So maybe after we've done this, we introduce a nervous system regulating pause, or a script for staying engaged, or a boundary setting tool, or a communication model. Now, the client isn't just aware of why they shut down and now how to cope with those arguments, but now they have a new internal response because we've reworked the belief system around criticism, and they're capable of handling uncomfortable emotions and have the skill set to actually manage those conversations conversations. That's sustainable change. That's integrative learning. That is actual development, not just problem solving. Because again, when you change the belief, you change everything after that. Everything flows from the belief system. And if you've done any personal development of your own, you know our belief systems, you know our thoughts, you know our mindsets are the key to every emotion, every decision, and every behavior. And with coaching like this is how you move your clients further, faster. This is how the change goes deeper. This, most importantly, is how whatever progress is made in that coaching space lasts. And this is what people are paying for. This is what people are looking for in coaching. They're not wanting surface level emotion. They're not wanting insight without action. They're not wanting this pretty coaching. They're wanting tangible tools. They're paying for real, embodied, sustainable change. And when you coach this way, it's going to help you feel grounded in your work, and it's going to raise the standard of the industry as a whole, which is one of our missions, not just in this podcast, but in the coach training as well. And if you want scientifically proven frameworks like this, I invite you to book a complimentary consult with me to talk about the art and skill of coaching. Because like I mentioned before, our spring class is actually open for enrollment right now. This is the last week before we close our doors for another 6 months. We only open enrollment twice a year, but inside you'll learn how to use scientifically proven frameworks and interventions just like the ABC model to take your coaching to the next level, to give you structure in your practice, to give your clients tangible tools that are backed by psychology. And I would love to see you on the inside. I'll throw a link to get some one-on-one time with me to do a vibe check, get your questions answered, and just learn more in the show notes. So definitely check that out. Again, enrollment closes Friday the 13th. So get in there before it's too late. And as always, thank you for tuning in. If you found this episode helpful, please leave us a 5-star review, share this episode, and make sure to hit subscribe so that you never miss another episode to help you master the art and skill of coaching.